Okay, so you've released a track, it's out in the world, and now you're wondering, where does the money actually go? Well, you are in the right place. In this explainer, we are going to dive straight into the notorious alphabet soup of the US copyright landscape. We're breaking down the exact systems, organizations, and codes you absolutely need to know to make sure you're getting paid for your hard work. Let's get into it.
We've got 5 quick stops today to build your roadmap to getting paid. We'll cover the missing music money, the 2 copyrights attached to one song, choosing your PRO, the role of SoundExchange, and finally, how to unlock all those remaining royalty lanes. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the missing music money. Are you actually getting paid? I want you to ask yourself this directly. When your song plays publicly, are you 100% sure you aren't leaving money on the table? You see, a lot of creators finish a track, upload it through a distributor to a streaming platform and think, sweet, I'm done. But honestly, in the music business, distribution is literally just step 1. Picture this. It's a month later. Your song is playing over the speakers at some random coffee shop in Phoenix. As Royalty Exchange points out so perfectly, nobody claps, nobody is buying a physical record, but a royalty is born right then and there. And here's the kicker. If you haven't done your administrative paperwork, that money just vanishes. It never reaches your pocket. So how do we fix this? It starts with understanding Section 2. 2 copyrights, 1 song. This is the big legal divide. Every single song you release is actually split right down the middle into 2 distinct legal halves. On one side, you have the musical work. That's the underlying composition, the lyrics, the melody, basically the sheet music. That's created by songwriters and publishers. On the flip side, you have the sound recording, often called the master. This is the actual specific audio file you blast in your car, created by the performing artist, the label, or the producer. Copyright law treats these 2 halves completely differently, and they pay out through entirely different pipelines.
It's kind of wild to think about, but the composition phase, just the notes and lyrics, functions as a totally separate, foundational income stream. Think about it like this. If 100 different artists record a cover of your song, they're creating 100 brand new sound recordings. But you, as the creator of that underlying musical work, you are still owed a royalty every single time any of those versions is played publicly.
Which brings us to Section 3, choosing your PRO, specifically looking at ASCAP versus BMI.
If you're the songwriter, you absolutely have to pick a performing rights organization, or PRO, to track and collect your royalties when your composition is played publicly. Think about it. Whenever a song plays on the radio, on TV, in a hotel lobby, or a sports arena, a royalty is generated. You obviously can't invoice every single coffee shop in the country yourself, right? That's exactly why PROs exist. They pool the rights of millions of writers and issue blanket licenses to all these venues and broadcasters.
And to put this into perspective, $3 billion. That is how much ASCAP and BMI move every single year on behalf of American songwriters. It is a massive scale. Now, there are other invite-only options out there like CSAC or GMR, but ASCAP and BMI are the 2 absolute giants you'll likely be choosing between when you're getting started.
When you're comparing them side by side, you've got to weigh a few things. ASCAP offers free publisher signups if you do it at the same time as your writer account. Plus, they have a super flexible 1-year contract. BMI, on the other hand, usually charges about $175 or more to set up a publishing entity, and they lock you into a 2-year term for writers. But industry sources often note that BMI's checks tend to arrive about a month faster, so if cash flow is your top priority, that timing might be a real game changer for you.
There was also a massive structural shakeup just in 2024 that you should know about. BMI was actually acquired by a private equity firm and transitioned into a for-profit model, aiming to pay out an 85% return to members while retaining about 15% for overhead and margins. ASCAP remains a member-owned nonprofit targeting a 90% return. We're just laying out the facts here neutrally, because whether you lean towards a nonprofit model or a private equity-backed model, it directly impacts how the business of your catalog is managed.
All right, let's flip the coin and look at the second half of our copyright equation. In Section 4, enter SoundExchange and the recording half.
If your voice is on the track, if you played the guitar, or if you produced the specific audio file that's getting streamed digitally, this is where your revenue comes from. Going back to what we just talked about, your PRO only pays you for the underlying composition. If you don't look past your PRO, you're literally ignoring the sound recording, the master, and all the unique money it generates.
This is where SoundExchange steps in.
They exist specifically to collect non-interactive digital performance royalties. Think stations like SiriusXM or Pandora. And they pay it out based on a very rigid, legally mandated statutory split. U.S. law says 50% goes to the copyright owner, which is usually the label or the indie artist owning their own masters. 45% goes directly to the featured artist. And then there's a really cool 5% carved out just for non-featured musicians and vocalists. Just a quick side note, though. This is for digital audio. Traditional AM and FM radio in the U.S. famously does not pay a performance royalty to the sound recording side, only the composition side.
And hey, if you're a producer, a mixer, or a sound engineer, you can actually tap into this revenue stream too. You do this using something called a letter of direction. Basically, if the featured artist agrees to share a slice of their 45%, they file this formal paperwork with SoundExchange, and boom, you start getting direct royalty checks for your creative studio work.
Choosing a PRO and signing up for SoundExchange covers the big public performances. But we aren't done yet. Welcome to Section 5, unlocking the remaining royalty lanes.
I want you to think of royalties like a massive multi-lane highway. Your PRO is just one lane, the performance lane. But if you don't register for the others, your money just gets stuck in a black box. It's a super common misconception that just joining ASCAP or BMI means all your money's handled. It's definitely not.
First things first, you have to properly tag your work with unique data identifiers. You need an ISWC for the composition and an ISRC for the master recording. Think of them like tracking numbers for a package. The ISWC ties back to the writers and publishers. The ISRC tracks the specific audio file. If you don't embed and register these codes, the algorithms and licensing agencies literally can't match your music to your bank account.
Okay, here is your rapid-fire checklist to unlock those final lanes. First, register with the MLC, the Mechanical Licensing Collective. You need them for interactive streaming mechanicals, like when someone physically taps play on your song on Spotify. Second, sync royalties for TV and film. You'll usually manage those through a publisher. Third, collect your master streaming royalties right from your distributor. Fourth, and this is huge, if you play your own original music live, submit your setlist to BMI Live or ASCAP Plus. Venues pay licensing fees, and a chunk of that should be yours. Finally, session players. Get registered with the AFM and SAG-AFTRA Fund to grab that 5% non-featured slice we talked about.
Now, zooming out for a second, it's also vital to keep an eye on international trade policies, because they can have a massive impact. Right now, there's nearly $300 million in potential impact on American artists' foreign paychecks. For example, many EU states currently grant national treatment, meaning they pay American creators just like their own. But because the US doesn't have that terrestrial AM/FM radio performance right for sound recordings that we mentioned earlier, the EU is considering shifting to material reciprocity. In plain English, they might restrict payments to perfectly match what EU creators can earn over here in the States. Organizations are watching this closely because it could seriously disrupt the global flow of royalties.
So I'm going to leave you with this absolute mic drop of a thought. The songwriters who earn the most from their catalogs are rarely the most talented. They are the best administered. Are you going to let your talent be overshadowed by sloppy paperwork? The difference between treating your music like a fun hobby and a sustainable lifelong career all comes down to administration. Get your PRO, get SoundExchange, register with the MLC, claim your identifiers. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer today, and here's to making sure you capture absolutely every single penny your music generates.